Hi there guys, how you all doing? My name is Tim and welcome to another deck profile for the channel. Today we are going to be looking at Zombie World. Now Zombie World is one of my favourite decks to play. It's really great if you're not wanting to play a big combo deck, which sometimes you just don't want to have to think about your big combos. So Zombie World works through like a floodgate style gameplay. It's there to just disrupt your opponent and really annoy them essentially throughout the entirety of the duel. So you don't really do massive combos sort of turn one or anything like that, but it is really fun to play and I really like using Zombie World. I've been particularly liking using it on Master Duel at the moment. It is not a meta deck by any sense of the imagination, but it can disrupt some meta decks in a good way, and able to pull off some good plays and stunt them a little bit before they can really get going. So if you are excited for this deck profile, then please do leave a subscribe down below. Comment on the video, let me know what you're running with zombies. We're just playing sort of pure zombies with a little bit of a danger engine today, so we'll be going through what we've got in the deck and having a chat about it. So let's get into the deck profile now. We are running a 40 card main deck with a 15 card extra deck, of course. The extra deck is kind of quite full. There's a lot of different stuff that you can play in the extra deck. But we'll go through the main deck first, of course. First of all, we are running 3 copies of Doom King Balladrock. Now, Doom King Balladrock has the effect of, during the standby phase, if a face-up card is in the field zone and this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card in defense position. You can only use this effect of Doom King Balladrock once per turn, and once per chain, when a zombie monster, except for Doom King Balladrock, activates its effect, quick effect, you can apply one of these effects, but you cannot apply that same effect again this turn. Negate that effect, or banish one monster from the field or graveyard. So this is absolutely fantastic, because with Zombie World we're going to be turning everything into zombies, which means that lots of things are going to be using its effect with Zombie World. Next up, we've got the main sort of combo piece as such for the deck. We have got 3 copies of Unizombie. Unizombie is absolutely the best card in the deck. It has the effect of, you can target one face-up monster on the field, discard 1 card, and if you do, increase that target's level by 1. And then you can also target 1 face-up monster on the field. Monsters that you control cannot attack for the rest of this turn, except for zombie monsters, which, if you can get Zombie World on the field, doesn't matter. Also send 1 zombie monster from deck to graveyard, and if you do, increase that target's level by 1. So it's really useful for being able to get the zombies that you need into the graveyard, because there are certain zombies which have their effects in the graveyard, which are really useful to get there from the deck or from your hand, including this one here, Necro World Banshee. Necro World Banshee is our way of getting to Zombie World nice and straightforward. So as the effect of Zombie World in the field zone cannot be destroyed by card effects, also neither player can target it with card effects. It also has the effect of quick effect. You can banish this card from your field or graveyard, activate 1 Zombie World directly from your hand or deck. You can only use this once per turn. So that is activating directly from the deck, so it cannot be Ash Blossomed, which is really useful because we want to get Zombie World on the field as quick as we possibly can, and Necro World Banshee is a fantastic way of doing that. So but the problem is that you kind of don't want to be normal summoning where possible, so Unizombie is useful for that. Next up, we got 3 copies of Glow Up Bloom. You could probably reduce this to 2 copies, but I like to run it at 3. Glow Up Bloom has the effect of, if this card is in the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard to add a level 5 or higher zombie type monster from deck to hand, or if Zombie World is in a field zone, you can special summon it from your deck instead. Also, in either case, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except for zombie monsters. You can only use this effect once per turn. So yeah, you probably could run it at 2, but I like running it at 3 because I like to be able to get multiple summons throughout the course of the duel. Like I say, Zombie World is something that is trying to create a long duel. So Glow Up Bloom may get used multiple times throughout the duel. Next up, we've got 2 copies of Gozuki. Gozuki is fantastic for the set. So during your main phase, you can send 1 zombie monster from deck to graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish 1 zombie monster from your graveyard, except for Gozuki, and special summon 1 zombie monster from your hand. You can only use this effect once per turn. So yeah, sending a zombie from deck to graveyard is again fantastic for getting your Necro World Banshee or your Glow Up Bloom into the graveyard, or even Doom King Baladrock if you already have Zombie World established. Next up, we've got 2 copies of Mizuki. You can banish this card from your graveyard to target 1 zombie monster in your graveyard and special summon that target. Fantastic, and that is not once per turn either. So you can do that multiple times, which is why we're running 2 copies of that. Next up, we've got Shiranui Solitaire. Shiranui Solitaire is useful for being able to get access to Unizombie, but yeah, you'd rather see Unizombie than Shiranui Solitaire. It has the effect of you contribute 1 zombie monster to special summon 1 zombie tuner with 0 defense from your deck. And if this card is banished, you can target 1 of your banished Shiranui monsters, except for Shiranui Solitaire, or up to 2 instead if Shiranui style Synthesis is on the field and special summon them. You can only use each effect once per turn. Unfortunately, we're not running any other Shiranui cards in the build. So that last effect has nothing. You're mainly using that to tribute himself in order to be able to summon Unizombie from the deck. Next up, we've got 2 copies of Jack O'Bolan. Jack O'Bolan is, for a start, a really cool looking card, but it's a fantastic way of just being able to special summon more cards onto your field. You can discard 1 zombie monster, special summon this card from your hand. During your opponent's main phase, you can target 1 zombie monster in either graveyard and special summon it. That is a quick effect. But banish it when it leaves the field, then banish this face-up card until the end phase. So it's got a little bit of a disruption in the fact that if something goes to the graveyard and needs to stay there, so for example like a Fallen of Albaz, we can yoink that, because if we've got Zombie World on the field, it will be a zombie. So it's a really useful card for that sort of stuff. Next up, we've got 1 copy of Mad Mauler. This card's name becomes Plague Spreader Zombie whilst on the field and in the graveyard. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target 1 level 6 or higher monster that you control, reduce its level by 2, and if you do, special summon this card. Also, the player who summoned it cannot special summon monsters except for zombie monsters while this card is face up in the monster zone. So yeah, really useful for being able to get another body on the field, useful to be able to level modulate some of these, particularly like reducing Jack O'Bolan down to a 5, reducing Doom King down to a 6 in order to go in for some decent synchro plays using Mad Mauler. Next up, we have got Vampire Fraulein, who is a fantastic little bit of protection that you can have. When a monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position, and you can only use this effect once per turn. Once per battle, if your zombie monster battles an opponent's monster, during that damage calculation, you can pay life points in multiples of 100, maximum of 3,000. Your battling monster gains that much attack and defense during that damage calculation only. At the end of the battle phase, if this card destroyed any monsters by battle, you can special summon them from the graveyard to your field. So you can special summon this out into attack position and then spend a decent chunk of life points in order to be able to beat over something, and then summon it back to your side of the field, which can be really useful, but also a little bit of protection can go a long way with this deck. Like I say, we want the staying power quite a lot. Speaking of staying power, we've got Algul Mazera as well. If a zombie monster that you control will be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your hand or graveyard instead. If this card is banished from the hand or graveyard, you can special summon this card in defense position, then you can reduce its level by 1. So fantastic little bit of protection as well, and the fact that it just automatically brings itself back if you use it. And you can use that sort of multiple times. You can use it once per turn, but multiple times throughout the duel. Next up, we have got Chang Shi, the Spirit Owl. I always stumble with my words over that one. During your main phase, you can send 1 zombie monster from hand or deck to the graveyard. If this card is banished, you can banish 1 zombie monster in your graveyard to special summon this card, but then place it on the bottom of your deck when it leaves the field. You can only use each effect once per turn. So again, another way of sending zombies from hand or deck to the graveyard. Very useful in combination if you banish it using the effect of Gozuki. It's really useful for that sort of stuff. Next up, we're playing a danger package in the build. So we've got to start with Danger Nessie. It's got the typical danger effect of revealing this card in your hand. your opponent randomly chooses one card from your entire hand, then you discard the chosen card. If the discarded card is not Danger Nessie, special summon one Danger Nessie from your hand, and if you do, draw one card. All of the danger monsters have that effect of being able to special summon itself if it doesn't get discarded using that. And then it has a secondary effect if it does get discarded. If this card is discarded, you can add one danger card from deck to hand except for Danger Nessie. Then we have got ourselves Danger Jackalope, one of the better dangers monsters in the archetype. His extra effect is if he gets discarded, you can special summon one danger monster from your deck in defense position, except for Danger Jackalope. Then we've got Danger Mothman. You can reveal this card. It's the usual danger effect. If this card gets discarded, you can have both players draw one card, then both players discard one card. And then you've got Danger Bigfoot over here. If he gets discarded, you can target one card that your opponent controls and destroy it. You can only use once per turn. So yeah, fantastic little engine. Just for discarding stuff out of your hand, it's really useful if you can do that. The other thing with the dangers is, like, if you get locked out, if you're unable to actually summon the dangers, the discarding, for choosing a card and discarding and everything can be activated more than once per turn. So you can use that in order to try and discard more cards from your hand if you need to. Then finally, for the monsters, we are of course playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom actually making an appearance in a zombie deck where she belongs, which is always nice to see her where she belongs. All right, so that's everything for the monsters. Let's clear these up and let's move on to those spells. So, of course, for the spell and traps, we are starting with 3 copies of Zombie World. Zombie World is a floodgate and our field spell that we want to see as much as possible. All monsters on the field and in the graveyard become zombie monsters. Neither player contributes summon monsters except for zombie monsters. So the second effect doesn't have a massive effect on things, unless you're playing like Flanderies or something. But all monsters on the field becoming zombie monsters can really disrupt your opponent a lot. And also help us out with Doom King Belladrog. So we want more access to Zombie World, so we are playing 1 copy of Terraforming to be able to search it. We're also playing 1 copy of 1/1. Send 1 monster from your hand to the graveyard. Special summon 1 level 1 monster from hand or deck. Really useful for access to our Glow Up Bloom. We're going 1 copy of Foolish Burial to send 1 monster from deck to graveyard. And then 2 copies of Super Polymerization. Zombie World really makes Super Polymerization useful. You can also discard cards off it so that you're getting extra zombies into the graveyard and things like that. But Super Poly is a fantastic card. I just realized that I've got 2 versions of Super Poly. So I've got, 2 different versions with 2 different erratas on. I'll need to have a look at that. And then we have got 1 copy of Rivalry of Warlords. Each player can only control 1 type of monster. Send all other face-up monsters they control to the graveyard, and that type will be zombies. So you activate that as soon as they summon 1 monster, and they can't play anything other than zombies from then on. So that is it for the spells and traps. Let's move on to this extra deck over here, starting first with 1 copy of the Zombie Vampire. So requires 2+ level 8 monsters to summon. If you use a monster with a level that is owned by your opponent for the XYZ summon of this card, treat it as a level 8. Now the player can target this card with the effects of special summon monsters, except those special summoned from the graveyard. You can detach 1 material from this card. Each player sends the top 4 cards from their deck to the graveyard. Then if any monsters were sent to either graveyard by this effect, you can special summon 1 of those monsters to your field. So we do have ways of being able to yoink some of your opponent's cards to be able to get that first effect as well. Yeah, Zombie Vampire, really useful for sending cards to the graveyard. Next up, we've got our 2 Super Poly targets. We have Garura, Wings of Resonant Life. And then we've also got Drago Necro, Nether Soul Dragon. So we've got a couple of different options for Super Poly. Honestly, with the extra deck, you could put a couple more Super Poly in, which is why this extra deck feels very full. It feels like there's a lot. We could do with a 20 card extra deck for this particular build, but that would be broken. Next up, we have got Doom Kaiser Dragon. When this card is special summoned, you can target one zombie monster in your opponent's graveyard and special summon that target to your field in attack position, but destroy it when this card leaves the field. So really useful for being able to yoink a monster out of the opponent's graveyard and use it for your own nefarious deeds. Then we've got one copy of Immortal Dragon. During your main phase, you can send one zombie monster from deck to graveyard. If you do, this card's level becomes the difference in the original levels of that monster and this card. So it's got its own level modulation, and it is a tuner as well, which makes it really useful. But also just being able to send a zombie from deck to graveyard to set up something else is really useful as well. When your zombie monster is destroyed by battle whilst this card is in the graveyard, you can special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. Which is really useful as well to get more bodies on the field throughout. Next up, we have got Red Eyes Zombie Necro Dragon. Gains 100 attack and defense for each zombie monster on the field and in the graveyards, which makes it become absolutely massive if you're a bit late on and you've been playing through some combos. This can get to a decent attack and defense for sure. When another zombie monster is destroyed by battle, you can special summon one zombie monster from either graveyard to your field. You can only use this effect once per turn. Next up, we've got Skeletal Dragon Falgrand. If this card is special summoned, you can target one monster your opponent controls, or in their graveyard, banish it. If a monster is special summoned from either graveyard whilst this monster is on the field, you can target one other face-up monster on the field and negate its effects until the end of the turn. You can only use each effect once per turn. Next up, we have got Red Eyes Zombie Dragon Lord. During your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can target one zombie monster in your graveyard, except for Red Eyes Zombie Dragon Lord, and special summon it. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish one zombie monster that you control to special summon this card. You can only use each effect of Red Eyes Zombie Dragon Lord once per turn. So this can be really useful for getting a Doom King on the field, particularly if Doom King gets stopped somehow and being able to come back. Maybe by a Ghost Ball or something like that. Zombie Dragon Lord is really useful for being able to still bring it back onto the field, or bringing back something like a Vampire Fraulein, which could be handy for a little bit of protection if you need a little bit more protection. Next up, we move on to our links, starting with our Link 1, Relinquished Anima, useful for being able to get Glow Up Bloom into the graveyard, and also being able to yoink a card out of your opponent's field, if you can point to it. Next up, we've got one copy of Vampire Sucker. This is something you could run two of, because there are multiple times, and it does tend to get destroyed fairly easily, but it is very useful. So if you would tribute a monster for a tribute summon, you can tribute a zombie monster that your opponent controls, even though you do not control them. You can only use each effect of the Vampire Sucker once per turn. You can target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon it to your opponent's field in defense position, but it becomes a zombie monster. And if a zombie monster is special summoned from either graveyard, you can draw one card, which is useful for going in with Doom King Baladrock. Next up, we have got Avendread Savior. This card's name becomes Revendread Slayer whilst on the field. You can only use each effects of Avendread Savior once per turn. You can target one Vendread card in your graveyard and add it to your hand. We don't have any Vendread cards other than this. And then during damage calculation, if this card battles an opponent's monster, quick effect, you can send one zombie monster from your deck to the graveyard. That opponent's monster loses attack equal to the level of the monsters sent to the graveyard times 200 until the end of this turn. Really useful. Again, sending cards to the graveyard is always useful for this. Next up, we have got one copy of Nightmare Unicorn. Just choosing what Nightmare card to kind of go in. Honestly, you'd probably bump this up to an SP Little Knight if you've got it. But like Nightmare Unicorn, I figured was probably the better of the Nightmare cards. So I thought I'd put that in there to be able to spin stuff back to the deck. Then we've got one copy of Vampire Fascinator. If this card is link summoned, you can target one monster in your opponent's graveyard and special summon it to your field in defense position. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except for zombie monsters. You tribute one vampire monster, then target one monster your opponent controls and take control of it until the end phase. So really useful to be able to steal some monsters and for a little bit of link climbing as well, to be able to go into our final two link monsters. which are ones that I've not yet tested, but I really want to. We've got Yuki Honor, the Icicle Mayakashi. You can only control one of this card. You can only use each of the following effects of this card once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can target one effect monster your opponent controls and negate its effects. Then quick effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Special summon one of your zombie synchro monsters that is banished or in your graveyard. So really useful. And then finally, we have its evolved form, shall we say, Yuki Honor, the Absolute Zero Mayakashi, the Link 4 from the Mayakashi family. You can only control one of this card. Negate any activated effects of your opponent's banished monsters. If a monster is special summoned from the graveyard or a monster effect is activated in the graveyard, you can target one other face-up monster on the field, change its stat to 0, and if you do, negate its effects. And you can use this effect of the Absolute Zero Mayakashi up to twice per turn. So being able to negate effects on the field is obviously incredibly useful, but also negating banished cards. So if something activates in the graveyard and banishes itself, it doesn't stop that, but it does stop anything which gets banished and then summons itself back out from banishment. So for example, it would stop our own Algul Mazera, or the opponent's Algul Mazera, if they were also running Zombie World, but it doesn't have any effect on our own cards. So that is everything that we have got for these decks. I really enjoy Zombie World when I just kind of don't want to be comboing all of the time with these decks. It's a really fun deck to be playing, not fun for your opponent, but it is something that gives them a little bit of thought and how to try and work it around. So next week, we're going to be looking at the key cards and going into a little bit more detail of some of the cards that are in this build. And then from then, we will do a little sort of combo guide and interactions guide so that you can sort of see what we can do with the deck. So if you are looking forward to that, then please do subscribe to the channel, like this video, let us know what you've been doing with zombies. There's plenty of ways that you can run zombies. You can run it without Bleach and everything like that. Loads of different things you can do with zombies. But I like the Zombie Danger package myself. So thank you very much, everybody. I hope you have enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Bye.